This is Hannibal here with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer. There was a lot I did not find interesting this week because it was the Hall of Fame issue, and I could care less about Wrestling Hall of Fames. There's way too many of them, but there was some stuff I was interested in. But first, let's address the big news of the week. Ric Flair was signed to AEW in November 2023. Was a collaboration involving his Woo energy drink, which, after he had a massive outburst at a pizza restaurant around April of 2024 that made worldwide news, it was actually the best heel promo of 2024 by far, showing he is the greatest living wrestler right now. Now that Hogan's dead, I don't think there should be a question. I know Cena said, or Triple H said Cena was the GOAT. Ric Flair is the greatest living wrestler. Anyways, AEW stopped promoting Woo Energy after that and didn't use Ric Flair again until Mongo McMichael died. Then they had him on TV for something. Apparently, he was booked to be on TV for Dynamite this week, which very few people knew about. And he did appear in front of, here's a fan picture of him. This is him in front of a crowd at Dynamite this week. Why they didn't put him on actual TV, I don't know. You have the greatest living wrestler of all time. You don't put him on TV. He's backstage with his greatest rival. Well, actually, Macho Man, I would say, is his greatest rival. They like to. He had good matches with Steamboat, but they weren't as popular worldwide, in my opinion. But do something with them. They're hitting the lowest ratings and attendance of all time. They're not. Ric Flair's under. Like they're saying the reason they didn't put him on TV is because he had a rotator cuff injury. But he still was at the show. He still appeared before the crowd. And how does that explain that since the pizza place incident in like April of 2024, he's only appeared one time? That makes as much sense as Chris Jericho not appearing since April and being under contract, and you having people that nobody knows on TV every week. Well, all the famous wrestlers that you are paying millions to are sitting at home. It makes no sense. But apparently, he hurt his shoulder somehow. But again, he still appeared before the crowd. They just didn't put it on TV. It's just like when they brought Sting to these ECW arena shows that had like 700 to 900 people on average last summer. That Chris Jericho made a comment he said they looked like Tony Condello in indie shows, that was a shitty wrestling promoter from Winnipeg, known for ripping off wrestlers and doing really shitty, low quality shows. You could ask Scott Norton about him or ask Roddy Piper about him. And in my experience, he was a slime ball. Tried to overprice me for a ring once when he knew I was stuck. Total slime ball. But anyways, Jericho was comparing AEW to that, and it's funny because Dave Meltzer says in this, because Jericho said that TNA is more like the second promotion now after he saw Bound for Glory with the Hardys against the Dudleys, which apparently only had just over 5,000 legit, even though they announced almost 8. That's still more than AEW has on average by far. But Meltzer says in the Observer this week, well, the true second company, if you're not saying it's AEW, would be CMLL, AAA, or New Japan. Well, here's the thing. North American people, unless you're a real super smart mark, don't want to watch any of those companies. Because not only is there a translation difference, but they're boring. And so actually AJ Styles said this week that no selling is one of the biggest problems in wrestling today. And it's not just no selling, it's the complete fakeness of it and unbelievability of it. And I think Mexican wrestling is the most unbelievable of any wrestling. And Japanese wrestling, it's just full of acrobatics these days. It's far from the Bruiser Brody days. NXT did a 0.07 rating this week, which is down, but it's funny because John Cena for the Washington, D.C. for his last match, which has about 15,000 tickets out right now in a 20,000 seat building, he wants to have it WWE versus NXT wrestlers. It's like the nosebleeds for Cena's last match are like $500 and $600, and he wants to have WWE wrestlers against the development people that are getting 0.07 ratings when they're paying $600 for nosebleeds. That's ridiculous. That makes about as much sense as the WWE office. Mark Shapiro, one of the executives with Triple H and others, say they want to step away from the Vince McMahon pay-per-views and make more pay-per-views like WrestlePalooza, which they claim is original, but that was first used on Married with Children during a King Kong Bundy joke segment on Married with Children that everyone remembers was alive in the early 90s. And then ECW used it, but it was taken from Lollapalooza, which was like a festival from 91 to 97 in the 90s that was very popular. And it's like your WrestlePalooza had 5 matches, which is hardly any. So if you're are you basing it on ECW, the King Kong Bundy show, or Lollapalooza? Because it's not original, and I didn't hear any good reports from that show either. I really didn't. So it's just bizarre the way that the executives talk there. It seems like there's such a disconnect. Ridge Holland has now apologized to anyone he's offended with his GoFundMe, which I'm sick of hearing about this guy. Meltzer actually says here he was making, before he was sent down to NXT, either 350 or 400,000 a year. He made this for many years. He was then told he could be cut or take half the pay to go to NXT for 3 years. He said he would take half the pay, but only sign for 1 year because he didn't want to be stuck to half the pay. Meltzer says if it's half the pay, that would either be that would be around 175,000 or 200,000 a year. And then there's wrestlers like Jasmine Nix, who would famously quit because she wasn't happy with her 80 grand a year offer because they wouldn't let her do Paradise Island. These people only wrestle like once a week at best. That's still huge money. And anyway, she says she's going to donate the GoFundMe to charity now. So bizarre. You're making in the hundreds of thousands, and then you want to GoFundMe from regular people that are probably making far less than that. SmackDown in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the pre-sale is only 1,300 right now. SmackDown November 7th in Greenville, South Carolina had 6,300. Raw in Boston for John Cena's last appearance on Monday, where he won the Intercontinental title, had 16,000 and 20,000 seat arena. His last ever appearance in Massachusetts, his home state. Jim Ross, who's been off due to health reasons and supposedly Devon Dudley issues, calling him racist and stuff, he's going to be back in AEW, he says, soon. Edge is taking time off. Don't know where Britt Baker, Chris Jericho, the guy that was in, he's been off TV so long, I don't even remember his name, but the guy that was in Happy Gilmore that they're paying millions to, he's off. Swerve Strickland, who they're paying like $5 million a year to, is off. Meltzer brings up here's what I think they should do. This angle has a lot of talk. Even though Anna Jay and Tay Mio were supposed to wrestle Nixon Newell and Miranda Alizé on Collision a couple weeks ago, I guess Alizé and Nixon Newell had jobbed in 3 minutes the week before, and they were asked to job for 3 minutes again, and they didn't want to, so they left. This made a lot of news all over the place because they wanted like either a 10-minute match or to leave, and obviously you can't dictate if you're not under contract wrestler, and it's not going to do you any favors of getting hired. But people are talking about the angle. That angle has more heat to it than a lot of the angles out there these days in any company. Not pizza. I don't know where that's coming from, but don't get me thinking about pizza. I got to go for my second workout in a million. Yeah, Dennis, they even Britt Baker supposedly makes in the millions, and she's just sitting at home. But we get these people that, honestly, I know Moxley. Um, I know maybe like 15% of the people because they're not over because they don't get their wrestlers over. And when people leave, like when Penta left, he sat out for months. They didn't use him to make new names. It's just like, oh, you're leaving, let's sit you out. What is worse, in all honesty, getting a 0.06 rating for Dynamite and 0.03 rating for Collision like they have been, or using Chris Jericho right up until the time his contract ends? To me, let's just use the guy because absence makes the heart go stronger. People are going to want to see him more when you leave these people off TV before they switch. It doesn't make it's use them in some capacity right until they leave. And if it's in their contract, they can't job. Like even Miro, Miro sucks, and everyone only remembers him for his wife making out with Lashley on top of him. But like he even had a little boost in popularity when he first went back to WWE, just because there was such buzz. Oh, you're paying him in the millions of a year and sitting him out. It made no sense. Yeah, Skinner hat, which I recently posted a clip where he alleged that he spit in the Warrior's face and it wasn't planned licorice because he had heat with the Warrior. I watched the match and he has zero offense in that match. I didn't remember it at the time he told me the story, but when I rewatched it, it's like you got literally zero offense. The Warrior just beats the crap out of you, but he talks like he's some sort of tough guy when he's talking about it. The Warrior was very entertaining. Skinner was an opening match guy. I never heard him as a shooter. I've only heard Coco Beware beat the shit out of him. So it's just funny that all these guys talk tough about Warrior once he's dead. I've never heard of Warrior backing down from anyone. Bill Watts tells a story that Warrior supposedly backed down from him, but there's nobody that confirms that. And I never heard of Warrior um, losing a fight either. Skinner was supposedly spitting black licorice. Anyways, guys, have a good weekend. I'm heading off to the gym.